Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Okay.
Tell us who you are, where we are, and what you do.
Well, my name is Sara Curtiss, and I run the Willow-Marsh Farm store.
And I'm Chuck, her husband, and I'm on the farm side.
Nice.
Farm side of the business.
We got both these recordings, so we should have pretty clear audio.
Okay.
So you're on the farm side, the production side. You're on the distribution side and sales. Very
Yep.
nice. And how long you guys been doing this?
Well, the store has been here 12, 13 years, but this has gotten to a new level here in the last year or two.
Yeah.
Especially, it's really catching on.
I really think, and I don't, you guys, I'm sure will know better than I do, but I just really think that people are. I hate to use the term "waking up" because everybody keeps using that, but people are just becoming aware of the fact that things like raw milk are a lot healthier for you than pasteurized milk, and that there's buying direct from the farm. It might not always be as convenient as going to a grocery store, but it's going to be better for you in the long. I mean, do you guys see that?
For sure. Yeah, one thing we noticed is when COVID happened, everybody was like, how do I boost my immune system? What do I need to change in my diet and my lifestyle in order to not have to worry if should this happen a second time with a different virus?
Yeah.
And so as other stores, businesses, etc., were facing challenges or sadly closing, ours was increasing weekly, and it got to the point where we were doubling what we were doing. Thank God, because we were, when I found Chuck, we were, it was very slow. There was no advertising. We still don't advertise necessarily, but word of mouth has really brought us, I don't know how many times at this point, the number of customers, a lot.
Yeah.
Many hundred.
Yeah.
Several.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, like, I'm not even sure how I got on the raw milk train. I think I might have been researching cheese making because I want all the hobbies. So, like,
Yeah.
even though I have no free time to do any of them. So, like, at one point in time, I was like, I'm going to make my own damn cheese. And you know what it was? I had learned about the hormone that they put in, like, a lot of the cheese that you buy. And again, I won't name any brands, but there's a lot of big brands out there that you buy at your grocery store that were putting the bovine growth hormone and the effect that can have on people is still,
That's not good.
No, well,
Wow.
but of course, I think there's, I don't know if it's Cabot or Vermont. One of the cheese brands, you look at it and it says, instead of it saying there's none of this in the cheese, what it says is there's been no information shown that it can have a negative effect on human health or something along those lines. Like,
Yikes.
I'm like, I don't know, man. Any kind of like hormone that your body's not making and you're taking, I don't know that that's a great idea.
No.
But that, when I learned about that, I was like, I need to make my own damn cheese because it's probably 90% of my diet at this point. So, and then somehow I think I saw an Instagram thing about raw milk, and then I started Google searching, and then what's the raw milk people?
There's rawmilk.com.
Yeah, Raw Milk
Or is
Institute.
it realmilk.com?
Real Milk.
And
Something
Raw
along
Milk
those
Institute.
lines. Yeah, one of those anyway had
Those are
like a
good.
find raw milk person near you, and that's
Yeah.
how I found you guys actually. And I was like, oh my god, that's only like 20 minutes from my house. So,
That's great.
yeah.
Great tool. We actually share that a lot when people tell us they've driven 2.5 hours, 3 hours to get here. I'm like, I know there are multiple places that you could have gone
I don't know.
closer to you. Well,
The next one I
last
found
time
was like Plattsburgh or something.
Well,
like
yeah, but
that.
that's not even 2 hours. But it depends, like what direction the people are coming from. So
Yeah.
I've sent them to Vermont. I've sent them to Western New York, south of here. But I've actually had people come back and say, we like yours better. Which is interesting, but it's like, I'm not sure I would drive that far.
We've been drinking it steady for a year and a half now. I definitely prefer the milk that you guys are making. Or that your cows are
Our
making, I
cows.
guess you should say.
We
Our
appreciate
girls.
that.
You know?
So do the cows. It keeps them in a job.
That's
That
right.
keeps them in the job. I'm trying to think, I think you told me when I first came in, you said it's going to be like drinking ice cream or something like that. I remember you saying something along those lines.
Yeah, Chuck says that.
Yeah, it's good.
It is good, and we feed the cows to get this, this flavor point, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
And it's just a management tool. As anyone can do it. We do not feed for high production. We feed for high quality taste.
Okay, so you're
two different things.
you're literally you're feeding specific things to the cows to get a specific flavor profile. I actually did not know that.
Well, somewhat. We just don't feed a high amount of high protein ingredients, in effect, concentrates.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's very expensive and we don't need the extra milk, and by backing down on that, the production will back down and the quality and flavor of the milk is superior.
That's interesting. So how much milk do you get from a cow a day?
Our cows, it's typically 65% of what the national average of a dairy farm gets.
Like a gallon, 2 gallons per cow? Like how does it, do you even,
Well,
do you measure it at all?
40 pounds, a good, a high, what we call a high-end producer would be making 70. We're averaging about 40 pounds, but a high-ender would make about 70 pounds.
Okay.
So that's roughly 9 gallons.
Okay.
And, when I was milking cows, just to milk cows, I was averaging most of the time nearly 90 pounds a cow a day.
Wow.
Which is, in my view, not a good thing to do. It's extremely stressful on the cows and the farmer. So now we're all kind of relaxed and enjoying.
Now you're like
Now we have
everybody's
these, Zen cows. They're all happy.
They're just happy,
Yeah, the happy cows, right?
That's the way it
Good
is.
life.
It's
Happy cow brand.
just how it works.
So, and I know, for people that want to know more about the farm, they can listen to the podcast that we had you guys on before. You guys, your whole life you've been in the cow business, I think, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes.
So, one of the things that we want to accomplish today is talking about the recent situation you guys had with Listeria, right?
Yes.
And so I think maybe why don't we just kind of jump into that, and I think the rest will kind of come out as we talk about it, right? So, can you give us just a quick rundown on the situation, what happened?
Yeah. Well, just one forethought into it. We are sampled every month, milk samples, water samples, and under constant premise inspections as well. So these milk samples are all in effect for food safety. And Listeria is one of the 5 pathogens that is not allowed in any food.
Yeah.
This is not just milk. This is all foods. As we know, we see these recalls every day. So one came in 2 weeks ago, something like that. One sample came back positive. So we had to go through and try, be detectives, try and figure out why. Listeria is an environmental bug, which means it can be anywhere, and it is everywhere.
Yeah.
We're just, it's just everywhere.
Well,
So-
I was reading a little bit about like what can cause it, and it was like, really it was like wet hay. They could have gotten wet hay. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like some of the things I felt like were put out there in the news about the situation was almost sounded like you're running a dirty creamery.
Well,
You know what I mean? Like,
And that's the image that the public is going to get on any kind of food. They're thinking, oh my God, this lettuce or these hot dogs or this
Right.
chicken, whatever.
Ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All food is affected by this. But so we started a process to try and figure out where this originated from, and we still don't know. All we know is it came back negative. So we're good to go. But we're on a regular maintenance schedule where we replace different parts in the milking system constantly, rubber parts, plastic parts, and all that, and those were all just recently replaced. That's why they're just really kind of blindsided me, because I thought, wow, why am I replacing?
Should be good to go, right?
Yeah, and it's puzzling. And we also had QMPS here as well to do a herd survey. That's Quality Milk Production Services, run by the state and Cornell University. And this is a mandatory thing that we have to do twice a year anyway. So we did this, and this samples each cow individually, and we still didn't come up with it. So, we just look at things, and everything just gets, washed and scrubbed and paid attention to, and the cows' beds are clean and dry. Dry, as you know, a dry environment is good for staying clean.
Yeah.
Excuse me, clean. But so we just do all these things, and the sample was negative, and we're still a little lost why. But I have heard from other ones and from our inspector that these things just come and go,
Yeah.
and no one can really put a finger on where or why.
Well, it's kind of like trying to figure out where you got that head cold from, right? Like,
Right.
It's
It's
like it might have been,
Of
but
the
no,
300
already,
people you're in
Right.
contact with
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's so that's it. That's where we're at,
And for selling raw milk for 17 years, because before we had the store,
Mm-hmm.
he sold it out of the garage, out of a refrigerator, and people would just, come in and sign a little notebook with their name and their phone number and leave a couple bucks. And so 17 years, the first time we've ever had Listeria.
Yeah. And so let's back up a little bit, because I want to kind of look at that process, right, and help people understand that. So I think let's talk about the sampling. So when you say that, they sample, you said they sample once a month?
yes,
So once a month, they take, it's just a random sample, right? Wait, you
unannounced.
just ladle it out of the tank? Like, what? How does that?
Yeah, well, they have their little collection vials, and
So they come here and do it.
they come here and do it
Oh, okay.
because it would be considered a biased sample if I was to bring it.
Right.
It wouldn't be. So they come in unannounced whenever they want to, and pull a sample. They sanitize their equipment. There's this little dipper type of a thing with a sample vial on it, and away it goes.
So no shot that the sampling equipment was contaminated.
I seriously doubt it.
Doubt. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the first part. I wanted to understand like what that meant, because again, I'm hoping that people will understand a little bit more about the process of not only what it takes to do the sampling and do the testing, but also to help people understand like what you go through out in the barn, so to speak, right? Like, so can you tell us a little bit about, like you said, you got a bunch of new equipment. Like, what does the process look like? The cleaning process, what does the milking process look like for you to get milk out of the cows and into a jug?
Okay, well, there's cow prep during milking. We call it prep. So we have a pre and post dip. We have this dip that to dip the teats. It's a 0.5% iodine, and the rest is skin conditioners in the ingredients. And so they're pre-dipped,
Mm-hmm.
and that is allowed to stay on the cow for up to a minute, and then that is wiped or washed with chlorinated soapy water. We wipe or wash so that the teats and the cow's udder is all free of any bedding, any manure, anything. So it's, in effect, perfectly clean.
Yeah.
It's probably cleaner than most people's faces. So anyway, and then the milking unit is attached, and these are automatic. We do not milk cows by hand. The milking unit is attached, and she is milked. When she's done, it comes off automatically, and then she is dipped again, because after the milking process, the teat end will stay slightly open for a few minutes, and so you want to put an iodine barrier on there so that nothing can enter the udder. These are all little. Everything is a precautionary measure, but it's all, to me, it's essential.
Yeah.
It's mandatory. You have to do that. You're just not doing a good job, and that's, Not all farmers do it to the extent that we do, but most of them are pretty good, you know.
Yeah.
And because the processors are holding them to a pretty good. Their processors are holding them to a rather high standard as well. They want clean milk. They don't want high bacterial levels coming back. They don't want elevated somatic cell counts. And I can explain somatic cell count.
Yes, please.
That is a measure of the health of the cow's udder. So if she may be getting mastitis or maybe kind of having a bad week or whatever, you'll see an elevated somatic cell count. This will also come from it'll elevate from just the general stress of the animal. But the somatic cell will also alter the flavor of the milk quite a bit. So that's another one that we take pride in keeping that low. But it's all about the udder health and all those things that I just mentioned, like the pre-dip and the wash, attach a unit, and then post-dip. Those are all measures of just ensuring the sanitation and the quality of the product. It's very important, but that's, in trying to milk them on 12-hour intervals, which is ideal. It's kind of hard to follow that schedule sometimes, but it does, it's work, and we're trying to take the stress off the animals as well.
Yeah. Now, on your 12, are you like 5 a.m. and 5 p.m.? Does it work out that way, or is it?
It's more like
3 a.m.
6:30 a.m. and 5:30 to 6 p.m. But
Okay.
It's kind of close.
Yeah.
But it works.
What about the equipment? So obviously you were talking about a real healthy udder, and pre-dipping and post-dipping and making sure that where the milk's coming out of is clean. What about the equipment itself? What do you guys do for that kind of stuff to keep it on the up and up?
Well, the equipment is cleaned by an automatic washing system. There's an automatic CIP, clean in place system, and there's a rinse. There are 3 cycles to the system: a rinse, a caustic chlorinated wash, which is very intense.
Yeah.
And then an acid rinse after that, and the system is considered absolutely clean and sanitized.
Surgically clean, as
And
they
then
say.
before each milking, even though that process had been done before each milking, we run a sanitize through the milking system as well,
Mm-hmm.
and chlorinated sanitizers. So there's not much being missed. We're covering all the bases. I mean, because number one, I want the milk to taste good.
Yeah.
If it's good enough for me, then anyone can drink it. But if it's not good for me, we're going to hold off. And this is all in an effort of just the absolute cleanest as can be. There's also a filter in the system, so that all the milk goes through the filter before it reaches the bulk tank to be cooled. And that's where in the bulk tank it's cooled down to 38 degrees and then stored.
So it comes out of the cow, goes through the system into a tank, and that was my question, right? So you're cooling it right away. You're
Yes.
not letting it sit out. It's not warm.
Has
It's
to cool
not,
immediately.
not a little petri dish growing at 70 degrees out there in the summer
Goes right through stainless steel into the tank.
into the tank.
That's probably Spencer.
No, it's the wind.
It is a windy day out
Yes.
there. So it goes in the tank. It's cool. And then how does it go from the tank and into the jugs?
Oh, very simple process. We've just got this little stainless steel tube, kind of a thing that connects to the discharge valve at the bottom of the bulk tank. And on that tube, we have a clear plastic 5/8 inch approved, 3A approved milking hose with a shut off, a 45 shut off on it, and literally the jugs are set up on a grid because nothing can be done on the floor. It must be on at least on a grid or a shelf of something. So the jugs are filled on a grid, so they're not touching the floor. Nothing touches the floor, and just fill for hours sometimes,
Yeah.
literally.
Filled by hand.
How
And
many?
It's
We're
not
not-
difficult. It's kind of
yeah.
boring, but it's
Yeah,
it's-
but
it's
still,
not hard
I
work.
mean,
It's just
how many
tedious.
gallons a day do you think you're filling?
It depends on the day of the week.
it
Yeah.
varies, but we're averaging over 70,
Wow.
Yeah.
closer to 80, and it goes well. I mean, it's become just a little from what it used to be, just a little thing you do for a few minutes. Now it's 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
Now we need to hire somebody just to do that because
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to break away from something, and all the filling is done early in the morning, and to get it in here before the store opens, new for the day, and some days it's challenging.
Yeah.
You depending on the day. I mean, some days we fill over 100, so it's but it works. It's well worth it.
Okay. Okay.
It's well worth it for a small operation.
I mean, I wonder, like, is it scalable? Like, I think about this all the time with farming. That now knowing what I know about raising livestock, small livestock, not cows, not yet anyway. But I think about it, I'm like, man, like trying to scale that any type of farming operation, that's got to be like scaling a marketing company seems
Yeah.
pretty easy compared to scaling what you guys are
It's
doing.
easier to scale a store than
Okay.
it is the actual like products that he's farming or raising
Mm-hmm.
or the milk production, because you run out of room in your barn. Now you're talking about putting up a $200,000 barn,
Right.
right? Then you're talking about needing more help, or having to grow more hay, or corn silage,
Yeah.
or purchase either of those. And then there's all the care. So are we going to go from an hour and a half to 2 hours of milking and taking care of the animals, and then all the barn chores? So it's really almost 4 hours
Mm-hmm.
to adding another 10 cows. And that's a small scale, right? If we were to double, it would be 44 cows, because we're doing,
Yeah.
you're milking 22 right now of the ones we have. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge difference.
22 cows. That's how many you have right now.
That's it.
That's it. He says that sounds like so many, but I understand like
They
from
used to have
a
so
dairy
many.
standpoint, yeah, right. Like you look at the
I
dairies.
mean, when he was young, they sold milk to Stewart's, so
Oh,
there
no
were a lot
kidding.
of cows here before he sold raw milk.
Back then, you were pasteurizing.
No,
They-
not here. We don't have a pasteurizer.
Stewart's pasture.
Oh, they would
Yeah.
do it. So you would they'd tank it over there, and then they
come
pasteurize
like,
it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Those, and that's where all dairy is essentially, and it works for the dairy. It's it's just something that I chose to get away from.
Yeah.
I'm not a believer in having someone else tell me how much they're going to pay for my product. And it's the federal government is how it works, and I
Yeah.
think it's terrible.
That price fixing that they did to the milk industry is unbelievable,
It's
and people don't understand how much that hurt the dairy industry.
Right.
Like, and it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Now with raw milk, though, you don't fall under that.
No, because we sell it ourselves from our farm,
we could
and
sell
we
it.
have to.
You're right.
Yeah, it has to be sold here, and that's one restriction, but that's fine.
As opposed to you delivering it or selling it to a store to sell.
Right.
Now, what about? I know that in some states they do like the workaround where it's pet food grade.
People have come to us several different times over the last 3 years and asked us to do that because they wanted it in their store.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that people are going to buy it, Chuck and I talked about it, and we just both feel like we're so transparent here.
Yeah.
And it's just bad karma.
It just feels
it's
dishonest, right?
It's dishonest.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we could have like got another 4 cows and made a bunch of money, but that's not what we're doing here to begin with.
Yeah.
You don't choose to be a farmer thinking you're ever going to make any money. You know? You
Which
do
is
it because you love
unfortunate.
it.
It's unfortunate. Yeah, I was listening to another podcast recently, and they were talking about that's how they do the workaround. I think that's a Joe Salatin tactic.
That's fine, and I'm not
It's-
judging.
That's fine for
anybody.
other people. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, no, I
I'm
get it.
only in charge of my own destiny and energy.
Yep.
I don't judge other people. I think that's great if they want to do that.
I just think it's
No.
hilarious that that's the length that someone has to go to because of what I would consider, and I won't put words in your mouth, that I consider really silly rules that you can sell that milk from your farm, But the minute that milk goes into a grocery store or a Stewart's or anywhere else, what's the difference?
Well, if it's kept raw, the difference is our name would be on it. And again, because we are so transparent, when it sits behind in a walk-in or in a truck, like, we have no control over that product anymore. So we don't know.
Oh, no, I get that.
You know, if any of the stores are keeping it cold enough.
Yeah, I just meant from a rule standpoint, like why it's against the rules. So
from the person buying it, it really, the rule doesn't really make that much sense, because if everybody's doing their job correctly,
right,
it should always be at 38 or below.
Yeah. I mean, I drink unpasteurized beer that I buy at the grocery store all the time. That's still got live bacteria growing in it.
And
if you don't keep it cold, it's gonna do some things, you know.
Continue to grow.
Yeah. It's just such an interesting, all these silly rules. It's like, is it really there to protect the consumer, or is it there to protect somebody else's interests?
That is supposed to protect the consumer, because you're supposed to be able to go to the farm and see the cows and the facility and how clean they are.
Mm-hmm.
The catch-22 is when you have raw milk policy insurance, which is extraordinarily expensive, because, you know, we're all trying to kill people with the bacteria or whatever, right? We are a small family farm, so I don't have people who can just take you on a tour.
Right.
I'm here, or I'm doing something else. He's out farming, doing something else. Everybody's busy all the time. We're always short-staffed. And our policy states one of us has to be, or an employee working in our absence with you, in order to go into the dairy barn for biosecurity.
Yeah, you don't want just people just wandering around through there.
So, like, you have this rule in place, but you also have these demands from your insurance. So, like, people come in and they're like, well, I'd like to see, and I'm like, well, I can't step away from the store right now. And honestly, at one point we offered it to the public, and we only had like 2 or 3 people
that were looking for a
that
tour.
took advantage. Yeah.
So make sure that was still running for me. I think the farm tour sounds like a great idea on the surface, but practically speaking, it's like, you know.
Yeah, I think it's at some point, somehow, in a different venue than here, I mean, besides what we're doing, but an educational piece somehow needs to be added to the general public. In my thought, and I really don't know where to start, I guess, but my thought is in the schools. Mm-hmm. I sincerely think and hope and wish that somehow some type of ag curriculum is added in as not as elective, but as part of the curriculum for whatever grade.
Like a mandatory,
whether it's in middle school or high school. Yeah. Just because
right after home economics that they don't offer anymore.
And, you know, I took home ec too. That's a nice school.
That's where I learned how to make French toast, man.
Yeah. But, you know, and that's the sad part of all of this. I mean, many people are catching on, and the general public is catching on fast. But, you know, they didn't really, get it in school, and still isn't.
Yeah.
And, ag in the classroom is offered in the rural areas. It needs to be offered in the urban districts.
Probably even more so.
Absolutely. Well, that's not going for preaching to the choir or actually preaching to someone that might listen.
Yeah.
And you'll and in that effort, the big blanket thing, the big blanket thing you want to come to is they'll understand how a tomato is grown, why a cow moos, why because they just don't know.
Why
just
does
like
a cow
dogs
move?
have different barks,
cows will move for
moves.
many different reasons.
Yep.
One may have had a calf. This one might be hungry. This one might want to drink. This one might not be smart enough. She can go lay down somewhere. It's just cows.
They just
But
talk to each
just
other.
to pick on cows. But I think And in that effort, what would happen? I know would happen was that there will be a kid here and there that'll be just so fascinated and want to learn that.
Yeah.
And when they come of age to get for employment, they can go to a farm and have a little bit of background. It's kind of rough because we're interviewing, but it's sad because a lot of them don't have any background. They all say, "Oh,
Yeah.
I love cows, and I think your calves are cute." That's great, but there's work. This is and there's no unless they went to an ag college, then they
Yeah.
would pick up a lot. But very few are doing that. Plus, as you know, there are hundreds of thousands of farmland lying vacant in this country. We need to put farmers on the land.
Yeah. I can't believe people don't want to farm. I mean that. I really do. I mean that 1,000%. Why would you not want to know exactly where your food's coming from?
Right.
Yeah,
Why would you not
and
wanna-
be part of that pride in producing
Yeah.
it? And it actually came from this country, not from halfway around the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. We can't grow fish on the land, but we can grow everything else.
Yeah. Some of my favorite moments of the day when I get to go out and watch my livestock just milling around in the different paddocks and stuff, whether it's the pigs just doing the pig stuff or the sheep doing the sheep stuff. It's just fun.
Absolutely.
The chickens being jerks to each other.
We
Yeah.
watch, we watch this one pasture every day,
Yeah.
all summer long. They're walking west right now,
Yeah.
and now they're turning and they're walking south.
Never gets old.
And but there's a lot more to it. Yeah, you've got the big element of it's work. It's real work.
Yes.
You're actually going to have to be physical about it. And yeah, it smells, but so does everything. It's
Is
just
it
not-
weird that I
it's-
kind of
it's
like
not
the
a
smell,
perfume.
No, because you
No.
have good memories attached
I
to it.
guess, right?
Yeah.
I smell like you came in and I could smell the cow shit on your
Smell-
boots,
smell
and I was like, I
chainsaw
love it,
and
man.
everything.
Yeah, it's a
You know,
great
it's
smell.
I walk into Stewart's, I don't think anything of it.
Yeah,
You know? But anyway, I think that's the biggest issue of all of this. It's just the lack of just the common. I
Yeah.
call it a common sense ag lack, but it's everything. It's not just cows. It's everything
So let's.
in production.
I do want to circle back a little bit onto the testing and cleaning and the recent Listeria situation, but I also, because you're talking about educating, I don't think people understand how the milk in the cow process works. Can you give us the 30,000 foot? Here's how a cow makes milk. Why they make milk. Can you just give them the quick rundown? Because I'm not kidding you. I think people don't understand where milk comes from sometimes. I mean, I know they know cows, but I don't think they understand what's going down there.
Well, milk is essentially the food and the water that the cow eats, and cows or all ruminants have a very unique digestive system process, I call it, and they need a balance of protein, fiber, and energy. And this is what ours get with the baleage hay, grass hay, alfalfa hay, and the corn silage for the energy and fiber as well. They need that balance. So when a cow consumes, ours are consuming about somewhere around 70 to 80 pounds a day and another 40 to 50 gallons of water a day. These
Yeah.
are the milk producing cows, not
Yep.
the yearlings so much. So then, that they eat these feeds and drink, and then it goes into one of the 4 compartments in the stomach. They don't have 4 stomachs, they have 4 compartments where it goes from one to the next, and as it breaks down, and then the 3rd compartment is the one where why you see them chewing their cud, because they're actually burping that back and chewing their cud, and that is the best thing for any ruminant. Cows most notably. Everyone asks, why do cows chew cud? Because they have to.
Right.
That's just bodily function.
Part of breaking it down.
It's a cow, a deer, a sheep, not pigs, but
Yeah, they're monogastric. Yeah.
And then from there, when the nutrients from the feed actually are transferred through the bloodstream and into the cow's udder, which is mostly it's these little glands called alveoli. Yeah, and that's where the milk is actually made. It's from the bloodstream.
Yep.
And it goes in the cow's udder and then to be milked. That udder, the size of the udder, is not just a big udder full of milk. That is a gland, and it's the easiest way to explain that part. And then whatever is not needed comes out as the feces and the urine, and that starts the recycle program. Goes back out.
Goes back into the soil, right?
Goes back to the field, and that's the perfect circle right there.
So, like in the Listeria situation, obviously, good chance they ate it. Would you say?
No,
No?
I wouldn't say that, because if they did, it would have showed up in the milk, and it didn't show up in the samples.
Oh, and it didn't.
No.
So I guess I'm confused then. So what was?
So are we.
Well, so what was the whole Listeria Scare about?
It's one of the 5 pathogens that can't be in any
Well,
food.
no, I know that, but you're saying that the test came back negative. So why?
It's an environmental thing. It could have been on. It could have been something as simple as just something that didn't get cleaned exterior
Mm-hmm.
and flaked into the wash system.
We're never gonna know.
Yeah.
You're
Because
never gonna know.
After a
It's
herd survey and they check every single cow and no cow has it, we're never gonna know.
Yeah, that's really weird.
Yeah, there's no suspect. There's no anything. It's just that she's all negative, or they may have had something else.
So what was
slight.
it? But one sample came up positive for Listeria. Is that what
It
set
was
the
the
whole
bulk-
thing off?
Yeah, it was the bulk tank sample, so it was a cross section of all the cows. That's why we did the QMPS herd survey of each cow to try to pinpoint it there. It wasn't
And then
there.
all the cows came back negative.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's I'm glad it's negative, but I'm also
Yeah.
on the edge of my seat wondering, is this going to happen again? We're doing
Yeah.
everything perfect.
So in that situation, like with the bulk tank, do you have to drain the whole bulk tank and?
Oh, we do every 3 days.
Oh, you do anyway, and
Absolutely.
then clean it out.
anything that's left over,
Yes.
yeah, that's that.
Got it.
And there's an
Yeah.
automatic washer that goes on that. However, we scrub and scour the entire interior of the bulk tank every time we empty it as well. And
What do you do with the milk that
water
you empty? Do you chuck it?
that goes
No
out?
pun intended. Chuck.
It's all gone. It all goes back on as fertilizer on the fields. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ever need me to take some for the pigs, I'm happy
That's
to
what
do
we were
that. They
doing,
love.
actually,
Oh
when we
yeah,
had
that.
pigs. They
Oh my
love
god,
it.
that raw milk. Whew, that's like growth hormone for pigs.
It is. Well, we're kind of taking a little different direction on that now and racing more veal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and that was going to be one of my questions. So obviously, or maybe not obviously, maybe I've got it all wrong, but don't cows have to be pregnant or nursing in order to give milk?
They don't have to be pregnant or milking.
How does that work?
They well, ideally, ideally, if the management is all good, you want about a 12 to 13 month calving interval
Mm-hmm.
for a cow. And so if she calves today, let's say if one calves today, then she goes right into production, and then in around ideally 60 to 90 days, she is bred back to have another calf for
Yep.
next year. So she's lactating. She's
Yep.
calved and she's bred back and lactating, and she would milk for about 10 or 11 months, get about 50 to 60 days off, called a dry period.
Yep.
Where they dry right down, shut them down, and just pull their concentrates away, and they'll stop. And their body is telling them at that point, their production is waning, and so
Yep.
they just kind of shut down, because now her body is saying, oh wait, I get carrying this calf, I gotta.
Yeah. So that
Do
10
better
months
with it.
includes the time
Nine,
before she is with calf.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a 9-month gestation on a cow.
On cow, yeah.
280 odd days. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was always wondering about. And again, I think most people don't understand what that cycle looks like, or what it. Cows just don't have milk all the time, just for the sake of having milk.
No,
Right?
no, they don't just take a week.
It's a milk cow. What do you mean?
Just
That's
take a week and say.
It's very similar to a human. So there's a 9-month gestation.
Yeah.
The baby is born. Milk is produced for that baby.
Mm-hmm.
The colostrum always goes to our calf. We
Yeah.
do not sell. We do not. We've had lots of people ask.
I know. I've seen that market.
So important.
Kind of
to
like
go to the calf. I mean, no.
so weird to
it's
me.
just no.
As I've
Yeah.
seen that market be created
I know.
over the last couple of years for
Yeah.
colostrum, and I'm like, but what about the calf that
Right.
needs that colostrum? Like, what is going on? What
Exactly.
is going on here? Like,
That's whether or not our adult cow will have a good immune system.
yeah,
That calf needs that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's important.
Yeah, that's
And then as long as it's being milked for several months after
right. It'll
that,
continue.
it will continue. If you milk it less, it will make less milk.
Mm-hmm.
And if you milk it more, it will create more. Just like with the human baby.
Yep.
If the child eats less, is a smaller sized child, or if it's a larger child and needs to eat more, the woman's body typically, or is created to, make more milk.
Yeah, it doesn't
Obviously-
stop it. So, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I met someone who was still nursing their kid at like 4 or 5 years old. I guess I
Oh.
shouldn't say weirdly. I don't know if that's weird.
It's just
it seemed
atypical.
yeah, it didn't seem. I don't want to use the word normal either. That's not
right.
It didn't seem typical to me either. So I was like, oh wow, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, just showing you that mammals will continue to produce milk
Yeah.
as long as
Yeah.
some's trying to get at
as
it.
long as there's a need. Yeah.
But we
So-
like to give our cows a little break.
A little
What I
vacation.
like,
You send them
that's
to the
what
spa.
I say. I'm like, they're on vacation. Chuck's like, they're just taking a break. I'm like, they're on vacation.
No, I'd love to ask, but I know the answer already. But you don't try to dry them up all at the same time so you can take a vacation.
No,
No.
No, it doesn't work that
that
way.
would be
huh?
too easy.
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
There are those that do it.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
that they'll time everything so that they get a break and
Yeah.
they can.
Yeah.
I
Start-
actually read an article recently about a dairy farm in Vermont that takes the winter off, and I mentioned to Chuck, I was like, how do they do that? He was like, they just time things in a way that
Yeah.
their cows are. I'm like, but that's crazy. Like, first of all, that's really difficult if you have a lot of cows.
Yeah.
And secondly, like, you're not selling milk all winter? Okay.
I mean, and let's be honest, they're not actually taking the winter off. Those cows still got to eat,
They
and
gotta feed
them.
all the
Right.
rest of it. Like, you just don't have to milk cows for a
Yeah.
couple of months. But
yeah, you've got all the other expenses and you're still busy.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm thinking, well, if we're going to be busy, then let's sell some stuff too.
might as well make money a
That
little bit.
seems to be, yeah.
Yeah, so everything's done in a fashion that's staggered.
Mm-hmm. So, I know we've been talking for a little bit, and I don't want to keep you here all day. I know you got trees to cut and
Happy
all
to
that.
answer questions.
I do appreciate you guys taking time to chat with me and answer my questions. Even if just for my own information, I'm always fascinated by all things farming. So the store. Obviously, I know that the store's been doing great. You got tons of products here. It's not just raw milk. You've got other things from other organizations too. Tell us a little bit about that.
So,
Network.
we have 4 or 5 other farms that have their products here, and lots of local small businesses that we support by having them on our shelves. And we raise veal and beef, and we were raising pork, but we partnered with Perlo Sausage to
I saw
have
that.
theirs.
Yeah.
And
Got one.
we also met a farmer who loves farming, but doesn't sell. So he's like, I don't know what to do with all this pork.
Well, that's
And
fun.
everything is fed organically. So he's
Hi,
now
you've
raising.
reached Willow-Marsh Farm store. It is Sunday, but yours
Sorry.
That's
So
all right.
he is now raising pigs for us
Nice.
because everything that's fed is organic, and he answered all the questions correctly, you know, when we were deciding whether or not to partner with him. So the name of his farm is D&J Farms,
Nice.
and they're about an hour from here. And we also have his eggs for sale here, and they're also fed non-GMO.
That's like $10 million worth of eggs right there. That's,
Well, that's Thomas's. We also carry Thomas's poultry farm eggs. So, yeah, the store's doing great, and we just continue to bring in other small business products, and we want to support our community as much as possible. I've had people reach out, and we've had Jessica's Old Wisdom Wellness tea for a very long time. I don't want to bring in another tea, but I have spoken to the owner and helped them try to scale their business. And there's been other products as well. We sell ghee, and that company wanted to get into other farm stores, and so I used my contacts and emailed several local places because I knew the owners. And said just give them a shot, and it's selling here. Why wouldn't it sell there? And
yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, I don't believe that there's any need to like worry about competition. You know, there are other farm stores in the area, and we seem to all support each other really well.
Rising tide raises all ships, as they say.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer of it.
Well, in that whole, what Sarah just mentioned, the more places, farm stores, etc., that there are out in the rural areas, the more that's going to draw more people. If there was just one store out here, you know, it'd be just a kind of a once in a while thing for people. But they can come here, they can go into another store 2 minutes from here, another store 5 minutes from here. You know, if they want to, and they can get all the stuff they want. The produce stands in the summer, they do very well.
Yeah.
And we promote them as well, you know, just word of mouth to customers looking for certain, you know, sweet corn or watermelons, whatever. But the more of us that are out there, it's going to draw more people away from the big box stores. And that's a good cooperative effort, you know, on the part of all farmers to do that. You know, if we can, you know, work together and make that happen. I mean, it is happening. Obviously, that's a concern, and that's what the consuming public is looking for. You know, people are reading labels now far more than they did even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, as was mentioned earlier, COVID scared the hell out of people. And
Well,
now we're realizing that, you eat processed food, and
It's going to make you sick.
You're not going to be
they're
around
asking more
long.
questions.
Yeah.
Wondering why there's chemicals in their food. Wondering why our food labels look so different from those in Europe. I mean, you can go to England to buy Doritos, and there's maybe 6-8 ingredients, and there's 12 to 24 here.
Or why that pork chop you buy at the store is pale white, and the one that you bought from the local farmer is more red.
Yeah.
Dark. Very dark, yes.
Well, back in the 70s, that was the next white meat. That was the whole campaign. The other white meat.
Yeah. Shouldn't be white.
No. Should not be. I don't know what that pig is eating.
I don't know either. Well, and
Not the
that's
right
the thing. I think that's a lot of what's going on. Is there is a lot of information out there. We have access to it. Like I have seen some crazy people don't understand like where most of the pigs that they're eating comes from and how it's raised in those pig shacks.
Yeah.
Where like the pigs never see the light of day.
Right.
They're just fed whatever they're fed all day long.
Right.
Like it's and if it's coming from out of the country, even I shiver to think what those pigs might be eating.
Just the fact that it was on a ship or a plane.
The whole
can't even
thing.
go that far.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But we send people anytime they're looking for like a half a cow or produce we don't have. You know, Arnold's is open most of the year, and we send a lot of customers there. Jason's a great guy, and we send people over to Buckley Farm over here on Route 50 quite a bit. You know, Lakeside sometimes, depending on what they're looking for. And if it's something we don't carry, but they've heard about it, and so-and-so got it in the area, that's a good place. I mean, they have tons of shelving with things that don't have to be kept cold. So lots of sauces and, you know, condiments and just fun things.
Fun things.
Yeah, really fun things. I like that place.
That's awesome. Guys, thanks for coming on the show.
Well,
Spending
Thank
time
you
with
for
us.
having us.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us. It's a
Anytime.
nice chat.
Thanks for all the work you do so that we get to drink that delicious milk. Tastes like ice cream.
It is delicious.
We're here for if you want information, look us up.
Yeah, and that's what, if people want to contact you, reach out to you, learn a little bit more, how do they find you guys?
Our website is willow-marshfarmstore.com. And our Facebook is Willow-Marsh Farm Store. And we're also on Instagram. And they can send any questions to our email, which is willowmarshfs, as in farm store, @gmail.com.
Okay. And town-wise, are we in Charlton or are we in Ballston Lake?
We're in the town of Alston.
Town of Ballston. Okay.
Town of
All
Boston,
right.
which includes Boston Lake.
Just in case there's another Willow-Marsh out there geographically. Make sure
There
you
is
go
a
for the one in the town of Ballston.
beautiful Willow-Marsh farm in England that does weddings. That is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. They're going to find it like, oh, wow, look at this place. Guys, thanks so
We're
much.
here in
Thank
the
you.
States. Thank you again, Michael.